Welcome to the Sleeping Barber Podcast.
V here, co-host of the Sleeping Barber Podcast. Thanks for tuning into the post-pod of our latest episode with David Tiltman titled Beyond Can, Creativity, Effectiveness, and Lines Intelligence. In our wrap-up discussion, Marc and I discussed things that stood out in our conversation with David, like the fast-paced demands of modern media, the importance of long-term campaign strategies, and leveraging tools like Lines Intelligence, and so much more. While I have you, please feel free to like, share, comment, and even get in touch with us. We're always looking to find ways to make the show better. Now, on with the postpod. Boom. Hey-o. We're back. You know, it's funny. We're back in our basements. After Cannes, and we're just, we're about to record the postpod here for David, and I feel like there's just a little shift in our energy. I don't know. It's hard to put it on. It's something about the free flowing rosé, the sun, that just puts you in a constant great mood.
Well, it's early too.
That's fair. It is quite early here for us.
It's pretty early right now. So there's that.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
Postpod. Yeah, let's talk about postpod. Yeah, let's talk about David. It was awesome, first of all, getting to meet him in real life.
100%.
As it was with all the other people that we got to meet in real life. It was really cool. But we had a really great conversation with him talking about sort of the tension between, the reality of evidence-based medicine and the fast-paced media landscape that we're in. Pain timelines. We talked about what Cannes has evolved into and where it's headed. The Creative Impact Stream, the Lines Intelligence app, which is really cool, how they're building that out. What were some of the things that kind of stuck out for you?
Well, I think let's first just talk about that tension between the data-driven consistency and a fast-paced media landscape, and that whole thing. Like, I think we're at a point where there's a conflict. The long-term consistent approach, which is advocated by a lot of the effectiveness principles, versus the rapid, high-volume demands of current media platforms.
Yeah,
and I think that tension is forcing marketers to reconcile. Like, okay, so what do we do? We're hearing on the one side, we're hearing Google, Meta, and all these big platforms saying more content, refresh it, because metrics are suggesting there's a lot more fatigue in place. And meanwhile, you and I both took on Richard's conversation, and we've seen compound interest studies and all of that, and we're like, the data doesn't support that we need to do that. So it was interesting to kind of like just get obviously David's take on that as well, and kind of at that crossroads we're in. But for me, it's still one of the biggest things, because the fast-paced movement is how the industry's been built.
Totally.
It's been built
you've
around
said something
this.
like that before, and like the entire content production teams and things like that are built around the idea that we have to replace content all the time.
Exactly. And this is going against that. Somewhat it's contrarian, if you want to label it as that. So I think it's important to highlight that we are at a crossroads.
Yeah.
And we did see McDonald's was on stage there, and they talked about 3,500 creatives for one of their global campaigns.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? I guess it's a global campaign. I mean, it's different. So I don't want to discontinue the importance of having that much creative. But I thought that was the one thing that kind of stood out to me, that, I think it's hard for us to navigate as practitioners right now.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I agree. Like there's so much material, first of all, in terms of the effectiveness stuff. And it's great that there's a program like Cannes and the Creative Impact Stream, which, according to what Dave was saying, and from by all accounts that I've seen published since Cannes, it's a really rapidly growing stream within their programming.
Totally.
Which is really interesting to see. And so there's like obviously a need for like, okay, what works? Not just in creative, but media and all that kind of stuff, but specifically with Cannes related to creative. And so it's interesting because I think a lot of times there's the actions that we take, which are led by the platforms, because we're using them all the time and we're in them all the time. And then the evidence comes later, and then we're having to somewhat recalibrate. Based on what we've been doing, which is now what we know, with what the evidence suggests, which might be contrary to your point of what we've been doing.
Yeah. It's a fascinating thing. Like, for me, it makes so much sense, because again, with a constant reducing of budgets, that, let's build something for the long term. I love it. I love it all, because you can really say, no, I'm going to invest this money, but I'm investing it over 2 years. So don't look at the production costs in year. Look at the production costs over the course of 3 years or 2 years, whatever the number is, that changes the conversation completely. And then the following year, you just use more media facing dollars. So, maybe in the first year, it's 50-50. The second year, you won't have to spend that much on production. You can recut it. You can maybe do something different. Maybe 20% of your A&P goes into some of that refresh, but 80% is going into media.
Yeah.
For me in my mind, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense. But anyways.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah. But as you say, then that the structure of your team might not reflect that reality.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a thing.
That's exactly it.
The other one that we talked about, which was a bit of a surprise question, but I loved his take on it, was the idea that North America is behind on the effectiveness literature and all that kind of stuff. I really, he had such a thoughtful answer. I could never actually replicate it.
It was, yeah.
But I think we essentially landed on, well, there's a long tail, and some of the most effective companies on the planet are in the States and in North America in general. And so there's lots of companies and lots of marketers in Canada and the US. And so, the long tail is there's fragmentation of understanding and fragmentation of adoption. And so, I think there's a reality there that was really honest, just about.
It was honest.
Yeah. I thought it was really interesting.
It's almost that he pointed it specifically and said, like, you can hear, like, Marc Ritson has been really on that drum, beating that drum to say that, hey, you're behind.
Yeah.
North American marketers, we may be behind in some of the literature around effectiveness principles, etc. But it doesn't mean that we're not doing marketing effectively. Yeah. Right. And I think that's the one thing that stood out to me just in his honest response. So again, at the end of the day, we can only help spread the message around why effectiveness matters, why we should be looking at that, just to make ourselves a lot more, what's it called? I don't want to say effective.
Yeah.
It just makes things a little bit easier.
Effective at being more effective.
Effective at being effective. But honestly, it just comes down to making sure you have those frameworks that can tell internally the stories that you need to tell and the why you did something, instead of it being perceived that, what are you guys talking about?
Yeah, yeah. Well,
I know
the multiplier effect. Sorry.
Yeah.
The multiplier effect report. Yeah. It was just, there were case studies, maybe most of them are from the US. So like there is a lot of that stuff being done in North America. I mean, we heard Rethink as well. Do a great presentation there. They're Canadian, so they're at the cutting edge of applying all this stuff in a real way for all their clients. And so there's certainly great examples of companies doing that here. Which is good. And I think there'll be more as more and more of this information becomes more and more accessible.
I agree. I'm not going to steal your thunder here because I want you to talk about it. But the other one was the definition of campaign.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that for me was a really...
Ding.
Yeah, it was a giant... Yeah, because, I mean, forever. I mean, when I first started working in media sales... Like we would talk about campaigns as 8-week kind of things. Yeah. Right? Like somebody would buy a campaign. Max. Yeah. People would buy flights and maybe sometimes annual programs, but it wasn't really thought of as a campaign. It was just, advertising. Yeah. But when people bought campaigns, it was, 8 to 10 weeks kind of thing. And then since then, you and I are working at a retail together, and it was roughly like 6 to 8 weeks. And, and then even since then, like a lot of the places I've been in, we've talked about 6 to 8 weeks. When you then think about the short and the long, and you hear a study like the McCain's When the Chips Are Down, that's a 9-year program. And that was the aha for me. I'm like, right. And that's the part I think relating back to the creative, where if you have a platform, a creative platform that does last for multiple years, then you're not changing things out every single week. Or every, refreshing creative every 3 months or whatever the thing is, Yeah, that was a real aha for me.
Yeah, honestly, me too. I'm not going to lie. Because obviously what happens is in that 8-week period is like you're into weekly reporting. What insights, what optimizations did you make? Then when the campaign ends, it's just like, my job here is done. Yeah. Campaign's done. Let's work on the wrap report. We're good. Yeah. Right? And let's get prepped for the next campaign. This reframes it completely, because then it just becomes a BAU report. It's like, We have a
What's
campaign in
BAU?
market, business as usual.
Okay.
So, when you think about it in the context that if a campaign is meant to last longer, then it's not something that it's in the moment. Like,
Yeah.
I fundamentally believe now that you can have a campaign that transcends time over the year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever it can be. But then you try to find like cultural moments to help reintroduce or re-peak interest in the brand. It's almost like the campaign can be that constant hum that's in market for you. But then you have like these you up moments like for IKEA, et cetera, that just does like the pulses. Right. And if you could do 1 or 2 of those in a year, it just helps again with a lot of that recall that we're always constantly chasing as marketers. So like I think we used to think that the hum was performance marketing. You have search on, you're retargeting, you're doing conversion. I actually think it's the opposite. I think the hum becomes like your campaign moment that you can maintain a level of investment against it. And then your beats become like those cultural moments or the reactive moments in marketing that you can have. That's what I think.
Yeah, I love that analogy. The hum and the beats, those are cool thoughts. The other one that it was related to this, there's a couple of other, it wasn't in David's conversation that I had this thought, but in speaking with Mimi and Jan, we were talking a little bit about, I think Jan had mentioned something about Warren Buffett.
Oh, right.
And then my thought there was like, when it comes to long-term campaigns, there's a quote that Warren Buffett talks about. I think it was originally from his mentor, Benjamin Graham, but that the stock market in the short term is a voting machine. And in the long term, it's a weighing machine, meaning like the real true intrinsic value of an organization is only measured over time. So you need a weighing machine for that. But in the short term, you've got quarterly reports that come out, and that is the voting machine that will get more people to buy the stock or less or sell off the stock. And that short-term noise performance. Yeah. So to me, that's kind of a little bit like what you were just saying with the hum and the beats. You need 2 machines to measure, like one for long-term over a 9-year period. Things like looking at the pricing elasticity, the profitability of an organization. And in the short term, it's the volume of sales. And so I think, both more and more, I'm like, more and more entrenched in the idea we need 2 different set of metrics because they're doing 2 different jobs related to the 595 and all that kind of stuff, right? Like they're just very different outcomes. Yeah,
I completely agree. The last thing that I think we should be highlighting that I thought was phenomenal, maybe a lot of people don't know, but like Cannes and like Lines, if you will, there's been a merger of sorts where there's been a few companies that have come together. So you have Work, Effie, Contagious, Lions. What's the 5th one, Marc? Isn't the 5?
Yeah, I think there was one other one. I can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, I think there was one other one.
But the interesting thing is about all these different groups, what they've gone ahead and done is launch this this AI engine called Lions Intelligence, which is unifying data from all these different brands that is helping marketers now, everything from strategic playbooks that are rooted in effectiveness principles to, how to position specific products or categories. And we were lucky because we got a chance to play around with that program as well. And I think it's going to be a really, really strong tool for marketers as a part of the research phase, potentially.
Totally.
It helps with briefing. It's just awesome because, again, it's bringing all of these data sets together. And I think that that's going to help, again, be quite a great tool to have in our back pockets.
Yeah, I think the other one was the Work. So it's like the actual submissions. Yeah.
Yes.
Which is kind of interesting when you're thinking about building a database in an AI or machine learning system. Yeah. Like the source material is so important. So having all of that source material in one point, like you kind of go, yeah, that's a no-brainer. Like totally as a tool for marketers. The idea, the execution is the execution, and who knows how that. I mean, on quick glance the demo that we had, it looked really great. But just the amount of information that they're sitting on, and to build the database and to build the learning models, and like it's really awesome what they're trying to do with that.
I think it's fantastic. It's fantastic. Yeah.
Any other last thoughts on
what can we talk about? The festival has evolved into a global marketing ecosystem. And the one thing that I can quickly say is the first time I'd gone to Cannes was in 2008. And I was a young lion at the time. And it was the first year they were doing like a media track. And that's why I was there. And so if you think about how it started, which was predominantly just celebrating creative, media started becoming a part of the equation. But now to see what it's become, well, for me, nearly 20 years later, it's a completely different festival. And I think we've talked about this in a few different instances, especially during our Cannes cut as well, where you have the Palais, everything that's happening in the Palais, then you have everything that's happening on the fringe, along the beach, in the town. And it's so, I was telling this to a couple of coworkers internally. It's like, actually, you don't even need the pass. You don't need the pass.
Yeah.
You can get in a lot of content.
Don't get it. Yeah. Yeah.
So
I know it's hard to explain.
It's hard to explain.
It's so
but we missed
big.
a whole other ecosystem. Like we were there for 5 days. Primarily, I would say 80% of our time was spent in the Palais. 20% we were able to get out a little bit. It's just, I love that it's evolved into this global marketing ecosystem. And I left inspired.
Yeah, me too. There's just so much there, so much great stuff, so many great speakers. Yeah, it was really awesome.
Yeah, it was great. So huge call out and kudos to David and his team for organizing and putting a lot of this together. I think everyone felt rejuvenated. Like I said, I think inspired.
Yeah,
for a lot of us, and here's to next year. It was just awesome.
Yeah. That'll be great if we get another chance to do this again. I would 100% sign up again.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, willing to recommend a friend.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, V. Well, and with that, we will sign off. But this has been awesome. I'm so glad we got a chance to do this.
Yeah, and thanks again, David. If you're catching this right up towards the end there, really appreciate your time and your insights. And like always, thanks for keeping us in your ears, everyone.